Pay attention to the young woman walking her dog in this CCTV footage. That's 23-year-old Diamond Alvarez, smiling and focused on her pet, unaware that danger lurks nearby. The street is quiet, peaceful, a normal evening in San Antonio. However, what she doesn't know is that 25-year-old Frank DeLeon Jr. is parked just a few feet away, watching, a weapon in hand. His intent is deadly, and the calm of the night is about to shatter. Moments later, he steps from the shadows. Diamond freezes, startled, as chaos erupts. The camera catches the brief struggle, then silence. Not long after this video was recorded, chaos erupted in the court like never before. Southwest Houston, a quiet neighborhood where the Alvarez family had built their lives. Diamond Alvarez was a daughter, a friend, a girl who loved walking her dog after dark. To her mother, Anna, she was everything. January 11th, 2022. The night started like any other. Diamond grabbed the leash, called to her dog, and headed out for their routine walk. She never made it home.
At the time Diamond was walking her dog, prosecutors say she had been shot 22 times as she lay face up on the ground.
What investigators found would haunt them. A young girl, her faithful dog still nearby, lying motionless in the grass. The crime scene told a story of unthinkable rage. 22 gunshots. Not a crime of passion, not a moment of impulse. An execution.
Diamond Alvarez was walking her dog when she was shot 22 times.
Within hours, the community descended on the park. Candles flickered in the darkness. Teddy bears piled up against the trees, hearts drawn in chalk on the pavement, each one carrying Diamond's name. Strangers wept for a girl they'd never met, united by the horror of what had happened just steps from their own homes.
Diamond's mother says she misses her daughter so much and she won't stop working to get justice and hopes anyone with more information will come forward.
But Ana Machado didn't need an investigation to tell her who'd killed her daughter. Standing over Diamond's body, something beyond grief washed over her, a certainty that cut through the shock.
When I was here with my daughter alone and kissing her, I heard a voice. I heard her voice telling me the name, like repeated the name and the name and the name. And when they asked me, I just blurted out the name. I screamed and I said, it's him.
The name she screamed that night? Frank DeLeon Jr., Diamond's 17-year-old ex-boyfriend. The boy who'd once claimed to love her daughter. The same boy Ana had warned Diamond about. The one who'd made her uneasy from the beginning. And from the moment investigators heard that name, he became their prime suspect. Because what Ana felt in her gut that terrible night, the evidence would soon confirm. Frank DeLeon Jr. hadn't just broken up with Diamond Alvarez. He'd hunted her down and ended her life. The relationship had lasted 6 months. 6 months of messages, stolen moments, and what Diamond's friends thought was young love. But for Frank DeLeon Jr., this wasn't a romance. It was control. Investigators would later discover messages that painted a disturbing picture. Text after text where DeLeon demanded secrecy, begging Diamond to keep their relationship hidden from the world.
They say prior to getting together, text messages between them showed DeLeon asking Alvarez to keep their relationship a secret, saying, quote, "Don't ruin this for me." Prosecutors say at certain times of the relationship, he's accused of being violent with both women.
The messages revealed a pattern. Don't tell anyone. Don't post about us. Don't ruin this for me. Each demand was a warning sign of what was festering beneath the surface. A boy who saw his girlfriend not as a partner, but as something he owned. But there was something even more sinister lurking in their history. Something that should have been impossible to ignore.
Complaining witness, specifically one where he had pointed a gun at her and, quote, clicked it.
A gun pointed at Diamond's head, the click of the trigger. Whether it was loaded or not didn't matter. It was a rehearsal for what was coming, a preview of the violence he was capable of, masked as intimidation or a sick joke. Diamond had broken up with him. She'd finally walked away from the control, the threats, the fear. And then she discovered why he'd been so desperate to keep their relationship secret. He'd been seeing another woman the entire time. For most teenage breakups, that would be the end. Hurt feelings, blocked numbers, moving on with life. But this wasn't a breakup born from falling out of love.
It wasn't love. It wasn't a breakup. He was angry at my daughter.
The betrayal ignited something in DeLeon. Not heartbreak, rage. Pure, unfiltered rage that he wasn't the one who got to end things, that Diamond had discovered his lies, that she'd had the audacity to leave him. When Diamond learned about the other woman, she agreed to meet DeLeon at the park. Maybe she wanted answers. Maybe she wanted closure. Maybe she thought they could talk it out like normal people do.
Investigators say De Leon was in a relationship with Diamond and another young woman. When Diamond found out, she and De Leon met at the field on Park Manor Street. And that's when investigators say De Leon shot her 22 times and took off running.
But Frank De Leon Jr. hadn't come to talk. He'd come with a gun, the same one he'd clicked at her before. Only this time, he wasn't playing games. January 11th, a quiet southwest Houston park. A 16-year-old girl walking her dog, believing she was meeting her ex-boyfriend for one last conversation. Instead, she was walking into an execution. The news hit like a second death.
The 17-year-old accused of fatally shooting his girlfriend 22 times was arrested Monday night, but he's now out on bond. And the family of the victim, 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez, tells KHOU they fear something might happen to them since they have been receiving threats after the shooting.
Frank De Leon Jr. had been arrested Monday night. Swift justice, it seemed. Investigators had moved fast, building a case that connected every piece of evidence back to Diamond's ex-boyfriend. But before Ana Machado could even process the relief of knowing he was behind bars, another blow landed. He was out, released on a $250,000 bond.
Well, hey, Reika, as you can imagine, she's heartbroken that he was let out on such a low bond. She says she lives in fear because he lives just 5 blocks away from her house.
For Ana, the news felt like a betrayal. Her daughter had been shot 22 times, executed in a public park, and the boy accused of pulling that trigger was walking free within hours. The system she trusted to deliver justice had let him go, sent him back into the world while Diamond lay in the ground.
My heart dropped again.
That was a reaction Ana Machado had after she learned that the man accused of shooting and killing her daughter bonded out.
But what came next would cut even deeper.
Executed my daughter. It was execution. Why would you want that animal to be out here for what?
The word execution wasn't hyperbole. It was fact. 22 bullets don't suggest a moment of rage. They suggest intention, calculation, a boy who'd made sure Diamond Alvarez would never walk away from him again. And now, Ana had to live with the knowledge that this same boy, this animal, as she called him, was 5 blocks away. 5 blocks, close enough to see her house from his, close enough to make every car that passed, every shadow in the driveway, feel like a threat. And the bond? It wasn't the judge's idea. It wasn't even a contentious legal battle.
Based on the prosecutor's recommendation to the judge, $250,000, we have tried to reach out to the district attorney's office to see why the bond was set so low, but we have not yet heard back from them. We've also reached out to Frank De Leon's public defender.
The $250,000 figure had been set on the prosecutor's recommendation. The very people tasked with seeking justice for Diamond had suggested a bond that, to her family, felt insultingly low. Whatever the reasoning, it didn't matter to Ana Machado. While the system debated procedure, she was living in terror.
Pointed, they lowered the window and they just did this with their hands. I mean, we know what it means.
The threats started almost immediately. Cars would slow down outside her house. Windows would roll down. Hands would form the shape of guns, pointing, mimicking the act that had killed her daughter. The message was clear. They knew where she lived. They weren't afraid, and they wanted her to know it.
With a cop guarding her house 24/7, she's begging and asking them to leave her alone.
Houston police had to station officers outside her home. 24-hour protection for a family that had already lost everything. Ana couldn't leave her house without looking over her shoulder, couldn't go to work, couldn't visit Diamond's memorial, couldn't live a normal life.
All we trying to do is be in peace with Diamond. That's all we want.
All they wanted was peace, a chance to mourn without fear. But peace wasn't an option. Not while De Leon was free. Not while his supporters saw Ana's grief as something to weaponize. Despite the intimidation, Ana was not going down without a fight. And what happened in the days that followed would show just that. January 11th, the night Ana Machado found her daughter's body, something impossible happened.
My daughter alone and in her, I heard a voice. I heard her voice telling me the name, like repeated the name and the name and the name. And when they asked me, I just blurted out the name. I screamed and I said, it's him.
In that moment, standing over Diamond, kissing her goodbye, trying to process the unthinkable, Ana says she heard her daughter speak. Not literally, not audibly, but the name came to her with such force, such certainty, that when investigators asked if she knew who might have done this, she didn't hesitate. She screamed it. Frank DeLeon Jr. That conviction would become the foundation of everything that followed, because from that night forward, Ana Machado transformed from grieving mother into something else entirely, a warrior fighting for justice in a system that seemed determined to fail her at every turn.
Diamond's mother says she misses her daughter so much and she won't stop working to get justice.
The memorial grew in the days after Diamond's murder. Candles, teddy bears, flowers, photographs, all arranged in the spot where her daughter had fallen. Ana stood there often, flanked by family members, her face hidden behind a mask that read, "Justice for Diamond." Not just a slogan, a promise, but behind that mask, behind the public strength, was a mother wrestling with unspeakable pain. And when she spoke about what DeLeon had done, the rage poured out in language that left no room for misunderstanding.
That my daughter was execution. Why would you want that animal to be out here for what?
22 bullets. Not a crime of passion, not a moment of rage, an execution. And the boy who'd pulled that trigger, this animal, as she called him, was walking free on bond, living 5 blocks from her house. The injustice of it threatened to consume her.
Death penalty. That's what I want. That's what I want. I want him in there. I want him to rotten in jail.
The death penalty, life in prison, rotting in jail forever. Ana didn't soften her language for cameras or reporters. She wanted the world to know exactly what she believed DeLeon deserved. The absolute maximum punishment the law would allow. No mercy, no second chances, no possibility of him ever walking free again. But for all her fury, for all her public declarations of what she wanted done to the boy who'd killed her daughter, Ana Machado was also profoundly vulnerable. She admitted as much when the cameras kept rolling.
Everything about my daughter, like I said, I don't regret it, that I'm in peace because I gave him all the kisses. I gave her all the kisses, all the hugs, and I have to be strong.
She couldn't break down. Not yet. Not while the fight was still ongoing. Not while DeLeon was still out there. Not while his supporters were threatening her family. Not while justice remained unfinished. Being strong wasn't a choice. It was survival. Because if she collapsed under the weight of this grief, who would fight for Diamond? The press conferences became Ana's battleground. Each interview, each public appearance, another chance to keep Diamond's name in the headlines, to keep pressure on prosecutors, to make sure the world didn't forget what had been taken from her family.
All we trying to do is be in peace with Diamond. That's all we want.
Peace. Such a small word. Such an impossible request. All they wanted was to mourn Diamond without fear, to visit her memorial without looking over their shoulders, to exist in their own home without police protection stationed outside 24 hours a day. But peace wasn't on offer, not while DeLeon supporters saw their grief as something to weaponize. Through it all, Ana oscillated between strength and fragility, between fury and heartbreak. One moment declaring war on the boy who'd murdered her daughter, the next admitting that what she was living through wasn't really living at all.
Going through is not a life, that I have to watch my back, that I can't go nowhere.
This was Ana Machado's reality in the months following Diamond's murder, trapped in a nightmare that wouldn't end, unable to work, unable to leave her house, unable to process her grief, because fear had taken up all the space where healing should have been. The system had released her daughter's killer. Now she was the one serving a sentence, imprisoned by terror in her own home. But she refused to be silenced. At every opportunity, Ana spoke out. At memorials, at press conferences, in interviews with local news. The Justice for Diamond mask became her armor. The media attention became her weapon. If prosecutors and judges wouldn't give her family the protection they needed, she'd use public pressure to force their hand. And when the day finally came for Frank DeLeon Jr.'s formal sentencing, when the moment arrived that should have been about closure, about facing her daughter's killer in court and telling him exactly what he'd taken from her family, Ana Machado made a devastating choice. She wouldn't be there.
16-year-old Diamond Alvarez's family instead held a news conference here at the offices of FIEL, the civil rights group, where they claim that for the past 48 hours they've been getting harassed and threatened.
And the harassment had accomplished what it set out to do. The threats, the drive-bys, the constant fear. It had stolen Ana's chance to stand in that courtroom, to look DeLeon in the eye, to speak Diamond's name where he'd be forced to hear it. The family held their own press conference instead, explaining why they couldn't attend, why safety had to come first, why the system had failed them yet again.
Horrible, because I want it to be for her to the end, but for our safety, we decided to stay home.
The decision tore her apart. She'd wanted to be there for Diamond to the end. One last fight, one last stand. But attending court meant risking everything they had left. And if something happened to Anna, if the threats became actions, then who would keep fighting for Diamond's memory? So the sentencing proceeded without her. But before the sentencing, the courtroom was thrown into chaos, the kind that prompted Anna to stay away from the final sentencing. October 17th, 2023. The courtroom was already a powder keg before anyone said a word. Security barriers divided the gallery. Diamond's family on one side, De Leon's supporters on the other. Sheriff's deputies lined the walls, stationed at every exit, eyes scanning for any sign of trouble. They'd prepared for volatility. They'd reinforced protocols. They'd done everything by the book. It wouldn't be enough.
You take my daughter, not to hurt my daughter!
The victim impact statement began with tears. A woman from Diamond's family stood at the microphone, her voice breaking, her hands trembling. Frank De Leon Jr. sat silently beside his attorney, orange jail jumpsuit, a stark contrast against the formal courtroom setting. He didn't move, didn't react, just stood there staring forward as Diamond's mother poured out her family's anguish into that microphone. Her words grew louder, more desperate. The grief was transforming, hardening into something rawer, something that couldn't be contained by courtroom decorum or judicial procedure. She was shaking now, her entire body vibrating with emotion as she spoke into that microphone. Then she turned. The sound echoed through the courtroom, her hands slamming against the clear barrier separating her from De Leon. Once, twice, the plexiglass shuddering with each impact. Deputies tensed, hands moved toward restraints, and that's when it happened. Anna stepped down from the microphone and made a beeline for De Leon, but she is quickly intercepted by a deputy. Then all hell breaks loose. What happened next would become one of the most chaotic moments in Harris County courthouse history. A man lunged, not toward the barrier, not toward the gallery, directly at the defense table, at De Leon himself. The railing meant to separate the audience from the proceedings became an obstacle to vault over. Other family members surged forward. Bodies collided. Shouting erupted from every corner of the courtroom. Sheriff's deputies swarmed. But this wasn't one person. This was multiple family members, all moving at once, all driven by the same overwhelming rage. The fight spilled across the front of the courtroom, fists swinging, people grappling, deputies struggling to pull bodies apart, to restrain arms, to restore any semblance of order. The screaming didn't stop. Family members still in their seats were on their feet, some trying to join the fight, others trying to pull their relatives back. Anna was being physically held back, her voice hoarse from shouting, her body straining against the people trying to calm her down. Deputies moved through the chaos like they were clearing a riot, hands gripping arms, bodies being physically separated and escorted toward exits. The family members weren't resisting arrest. They were collapsing under the weight of their own grief, being half carried, half dragged from the courtroom because their legs couldn't support them anymore. One man, the one who'd initially lunged at De Leon, was on the ground. Multiple deputies pinning him down. His striped shirt twisted around his torso as they worked to get his hands behind his back. He wasn't fighting anymore, wasn't struggling, just laying there, chest heaving. The fury burned out and replaced with something emptier. Someone in the gallery whispered what everyone was thinking. Crazy, that's what it was. Unprecedented chaos in a place designed for order. A courtroom transformed into a battleground because 22 bullets had shattered more than just Diamond Alvarez's life. They destroyed any possibility of closure, any chance at peaceful resolution, any hope that justice could happen without violence bleeding into the proceedings themselves. As order slowly returned, as deputies cleared the last agitated family members from the gallery, a moment of unexpected tenderness broke through the chaos. A brief embrace, a deputy, and someone from the court staff, acknowledging the insanity of what they'd just survived. The remaining audience members were still standing, still breathing hard, still processing what had just happened. A deputy's voice cut through the lingering tension.
Order in the court. Have a seat.
We're in the courtroom, as if anyone needed reminding, as if the setting itself mattered anymore when the emotions were this volatile, this explosive, this beyond the capacity of any legal proceeding to contain. Slowly, painfully, people returned to their seats. The courtroom looked like a war zone. Scattered papers, overturned chairs, the clear barrier still standing but bearing the evidence of impact. Handprints, smudges, the physical manifestation of grief turned violent. And through it all, through every moment of the chaos, through every punch thrown and body tackled and family members escorted out, Frank DeLeon Jr. had barely moved. The case moved faster than most.
Frank DeLeon Jr. accepted a plea deal to serve 45 years in prison.
Less than 2 years from the night Diamond Alvarez died to the day Frank DeLeon Jr. stood before a judge and accepted his fate. In Harris County, where homicide cases often dragged on for years through continuances, motions, jury selection, trial delays, this case was nearly record-breaking in its speed.
It was resolved in under 2 years. That's almost a record here in Harris County in homicide.
45 years. That was the number prosecutors put on the table. That was the deal DeLeon accepted. No trial, no jury deliberation, no years-long appeals process that would force Diamond's family to relive her murder again and again in testimony and cross-examination. District Attorney Kim Ogg didn't mince words when she addressed reporters outside the courthouse. The sentence wasn't just about punishment, it was a message.
The sentence reflects the brutality of this young man's crime, and it should be a deterrent to anyone else who lacks the impulse control.
22 bullets. The brutality wasn't up for debate. This wasn't a crime of passion, wasn't a moment of poor judgment. It was calculated violence. Frank DeLeon Jr., 19 years old now, stood in that orange jail jumpsuit. Sheriff's deputies flanked him, keeping a careful distance between him and the gallery, where Diamond's family should have been sitting. Should have been, because they weren't there. The formal sentencing hearing was scheduled with extraordinary precautions. The last time both families had occupied the same courtroom, chaos had erupted. A violent brawl that left deputies scrambling to restore order, left emotions raw and wounds even deeper than they'd been before. Multiple sheriff's deputies lined the hallways. Security checkpoints were reinforced. The judge made it clear any outburst, any threat, any movement toward the defendant would result in immediate removal and possible criminal charges. This wasn't a suggestion. This was survival, because the volatility surrounding this case had proven it could turn deadly at any moment. But all the security in the world couldn't protect Ana Machado from the threats that had followed her since DeLeon's arrest.
Yeah, that's right. 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez's family instead held a news conference here at the offices of FIEL, the civil rights group, where they claim that for the past 48 hours they've been getting harassed and threatened.
So the seats reserved for Diamond's family remained empty. The moment that should have been about closure, about looking her killer in the eye and telling him exactly what he'd taken. Ana Machado couldn't be there for it. She'd wanted to. God, she'd wanted to.
Horrible, because I wanted to be for her to the end, but for our safety, we decided to stay home.
Instead, they held their own press conference across town, surrounded by representatives from FIL, the civil rights organization that had supported them through the harassment and threats. But justice had been served, and for the next 45 years, DeLeon would have all the time in the world to think about what he did.